Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all in the another OIG in series session of Patanjali Yoga Sutra with Dr. Shushruthas. Today is our fifth session. Sir, you may proceed further.
Mhm. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Um, I think I'm visible as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, it is a continuation from the last session. We had a point to discuss that the obstacles can be overcome by the Ishvara Pranidhana, the very nature of you surrendering to some higher existence called Ishvara, which is secular in nature, has consequence to remove all the obstacles that may come and appear before your mind. So till here we have an elaborated discussion, that is obstacles of the mind. Then after introducing Ishvara Pranidhanadva, here is very interesting and most sought after the methodology of yoga is presented, which is called Chitta Parikarma. Parikarma is a cleansing process, a cleansing technique. This is interesting because by applying all these techniques, we can observe the visible changes in our personality, and the entire attitude towards life would change just by implementing one such methodology given in Chitta Parikarma. Hence, we will get into that. So this is the 33rd sutra, where he gives one after the other what is needed to be done to convert the agitated mind to the calm and quiet state of mind. So, yogic method of transformation of inner world called Chitta Prasadanam, mind method of tranquilizing the mind, and which is also called Chitta Parikarma. Parikarma is like you are using some detergent to cleanse the cooking vessels. After all the cooking, after you put oil and cook something, for removal of oil, you need some detergent agent. So these techniques will be exercised as a detergent for the dirty or some non-pure mind to cleanse. So we will analyze all those techniques one after the other. And the sutra goes as following: Maitri Karuna Muditopekshanam Sukha Dukkha Punya Punya Vishayanam Bhavanataha Chitta Prasadanam. So, Chitta Prasadanam is a part of that sutra, Maitri Karuna, where it claims prasada, which makes mind and body calm and quiet. With the same connotation, even common expressions like when you go to a temple, they will ask, did you receive prasadam? So what does actually mean there in that context? Even prasada mean, have you got the blessings? What happens when you receive blessings from the concept of God? My mind becomes for a while calm. Okay, I feel contented for shorter duration. So that whichever causes the quietened state of mind is all prasada. Now we are focusing the entire methodology of calming down and quieting methodology into chitta prasadanam concept. And he gives with the first technique itself, he says, convert all the negative emotions, negative behaviors that may confront in different situations in your day-to-day activities. Assume these are all everyday problems that we confront. For those, what we have to do, it's like a quick fix. One more quick fix is there in the second chapter as Kriya Yoga. But we are working at very much day to day, from morning till evening, what we are supposed to make and exercise our mind practices so that our minds at any stage can come to a stable condition. So for agitated mind, Patanjali is giving different techniques. So first one is convert all the negatives into positive. Let me read this statement. This is the sutra. Chitta is harmonized through the cultivation of love, helpfulness in the sense the compassion, happiness, and indifference in the situations that are happy, painful, successful, or unfortunate situations. So these are respectively correlating with love, that is Maitri. So there are situations in our life where we we may develop a kind of jealousy, looking at people who are happier than us. Right now I'm happy, but there are more who are happy, and this is very common expression. Someone else has a better car and I look at it and I want to get it. In case I am unable to get, I start developing jealousy regarding that person. Similarly, various situations of our life, when we see at those who are happier than us, what we are supposed to do? Patanjali says, go and make friendship. Be careful, this friendship, that is Maitri, Mitra Bhava, is not for getting benefits out of that person, but in order to nullify the negative emotions and behavior getting to the surface. Those are that is one of the contexts. He says this Maitri has to be developed, cultivated when you confront the person who is happier than you. Next, Karuna. You have to develop compassion. Compassion by empathy, not by sympathy. So get into the shoes of one who is suffering from different kinds of pains. And in fact, all the participants, the very nature and very attitude that all of you have is, why have you become doctor? It's not by compulsion, I wish and I hope. You have developed a kind of matured approach towards life, that let me help whoever whoever wants, whoever is in pain. Hence, I will start helping others. So whenever you see someone being in painful situation, you develop empathy. That is karuna, compassion. Compassion by empathy. And next one is mudita. Mudita is feeling happy. There is a difference between, uh, sometimes uh, this friendship is for happiness. This is different. That friendship that we mentioned in the beginning is to nullify the negative consequences, to remove the jealousy. Now we are saying someone who is doing good activity, rather showing indifference to those fellows, be happy and stretch your hands to help as much possible. We tend to be indifferent if someone else is helping the others. Don't develop such kind of attitude. But when someone is doing punya karma is socially helpful activities, contribute in that action. Don't be indifferent. So when there is some activity, helpful activity for others, for social welfare, you also contribute, you be part of that action. This is mudita. Mudita is feeling happiness by stretching one's hand while contributing in the action. Then the last one is apunya. Apunya karma is someone is doing something bad in the society. If it is towards you, if someone comes to you intending to hurt and humiliate you, show indifference. There is no point in fighting or winning over that person or being angry about that person. Nothing. As a method of tranquilization of our mind, rather showing angry or some other cursing, show indifference to that person. But in the context of socially, some fellow is trying to violate the rules of this society, then you have to have some kind of say or opinion, or if you are capable with your physical structure, go and stop that person doing wrong things. Okay, but here the upeksha is indifference. Indifference in the situation when the other fellow, other party is intentionally trying to hurt you. This is what Patanjali is giving as a first method of handling the agitated mind. Okay, now there are different other kinds of people who are not sensitive enough to confront the situations as mentioned in the first sutra, 33rd sutra. Now he is saying there is another way to handle that agitated mind by breathing exercises, that is prachardana vidharanabhyam va pranasya. If you are holding the breath and exhaling forcefully, hold, inhale forcefully and hold. This is what we say in the kumbhaka. General kumbhaka is either it can be of uh, exhale and hold, which is called bahya kumbhaka, and inhale and hold, it is antah kumbhaka. So there are various ways of handling agitated mind. Then with the second methodology, he says, even with breathing practices, you can get a good result. And the next one is contemplating things and impressions which promote mental stability and consolidation. Vishayavati va pravrittirutpanna manasaha sthiti nibandhini. While we go to even pranayama section, he says shwasa prashwasayoho gativichhedah pranayama. But here the stambha vritti is stoppage of mind for mind having for long one single thought for very long time. You may come across these experiences, but you might be unaware about them. For example, you are watching a movie, and in between, without you acknowledging it, the breathing stops for a while, but you never observe it. Similarly, you are listening to a great music, which you appreciate a lot, and breathing stops in between. Recently I came across people saying these kinds of their personal experiences, and they also felt that I am stopping the breathing, Why? So very simple. One way is that mind is much in the flow. It is continued with one single thought. That also is capable of arresting the agitated mind to calm state. And the next one is contemplating the inner light that is free of suffering. Vishokava Jyotishmati, the moment we become the Jyotishmati, the light within, when you start focusing, when you close your eyes, even though there is darkness for not allowing the lights inside our eyes, there is a kind of flash in our mind. So when you try to focus on that light as well, the agitated mind comes to the calm state. And the next one is, even when you start focusing on people who are desireless. To give some examples, we have Ramana Maharshi, we had Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and there can be many more like Buddha or Tirthankaras, or you take, for that matter, any religious or a traditional teacher, in any convention. All those, most of them had a kind of uh, matured level of behavior that they showed in their life, that they don't have any desires, no desires left in their minds. So even if you are capable of just sending your mind to those minds which are desireless by living their life, then also mind comes to an agitated from come to the calm state of mind. And then through the knowledge that is derived from dream, swapna nidra jnanalambanam va, even whatever thought you received in your dream condition can also, and remembering those, you may ask, there are various types of dreams I get. Sometimes it is horrible, horrifying dreams. Should I remember that to calm down the mind? No. He says that which are pleasant dreams that you had recently or even earlier, you remember that, then for sure you will have a calm state of mind. Okay, swapna nidra jnanalambanam va. And finally he says, yathabhimata dhyanatva, take any object for that matter that you respect or which arrests you from distracted mind. For example, in third chapter, if you study, Patanjali gives different objects to focus. He says lotus can be one of them, and the chakras, and nabhi, and hridaya, and outside, any object, uh, sun, moon, stars, or a specific tree. Um, you know, um, Complementing to this contemplation, you can study two chapters from Bhagavad Gita. 10th and 11th chapters are only giving what is best for meditation. He gives a list, big list actually, one after the other. What am I in the living beings? He says, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritah. I be as the fire, digestive fire in all the living beings. And I am Kamosmi Bharatarshava. Yeah, I am also desire in all the human beings, which is in line with Dharma. I am Vyasa Maharshi among all the Munis. I am Gajendra. Gajendra is white elephant among all the elephants. I am Vasuki among all the serpents. I am people tree among all the trees. I am um, the horse, okay, among various other living beings. So that 10th and 11th chapter, though they said Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga and Vibhuti Yoga, these two chapters are giving different options for you to focus on, so that the agitated mind comes to a quietened stage. These are very, very important um, methodology that he specifies to um, to 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 bring down the agitated mind to tranquilized condition. After this, he gets into the next topic. After this chitta parikarma, he gets into samadhi. And we heard samadhi for the reason it is the very basic bedrock for the entire yoga teachings by Sage Patanjali. He narrates what is the nature of samadhi in the beginning and different stages of samadhi and the influence. So I will take what is the nature of samadhi in the beginning. He says, Grahitra Grahana Grahyeshu Tatstha Tadanjanata Samapattihi. When there is no difference as such, the observer, observation, and the object observed, it as if these have become one and one entity alone exists. This is called the samadhi. Grahita is the observer, grahana is the observation, and grahya is the object. So when you sit before a big screen and watching a movie, when you start, shedding the tears, you have become with one with the character or with the situation or the experiences you had very similar happening on the screen with your personal life. Hence, any experience for that matter is part of samadhi already. You need not go to higher levels. And he says, Chittasya dharmaha, very nature of chitta is to get into samadhi. That means every moment, either be in different chitta bhumis like Kshipta, Mudha, and Vikshipta. There also samadhi is happening, but for a very short duration. In Kshipta Chitta Bhumi, what happens? The mind is getting connected and experiencing different objects, 60 different objects for given 1 minute. Mudha, where nothing is observed because of the inert nature of the mind. In Vikshipta, it is getting connected with one or the other objects for a shorter while. And Ekagra Niruddha is actually Samadhi and Yoga. So those two Samadhi stages of mind we claim as Yoga. Rest are also Samadhi, but those do not fall under heading of Yoga. So Ayoga Samadhi and Yoga Samadhi. Ekagra and Niruddha are Yoga Samadhis. Kshipta, Mudha, Vikshipta, Chitta Bhumis are Ayoga Samadhi. And this is the nature of mind to experience. So whenever you have an experience of anything, all the time we are in samadhi only. Then what happens in different stages of samadhi, he categorizes samadhis into different levels. Different levels of samadhis are from gross universe to the subtle universe. Let me explain. Right now, our object of observation is something, laptop or some mobile you are watching. So this has 5 elements, 5 basic elements, Panchamahabhutas. And the combination, permutations and combinations of 5 elements has emerged into different objects in the world that we are living in. So when your samadhi is regarding the gross world, an external world which are gross in nature, which are tangible in nature. What is tangible? Whichever you can perceive. So object of your perception. When you are capable of either perceiving or even to infer. So these are the two gross universe we are living in. So this is the first stage, means your samadhi is of about the objects which are gross in nature. The second stage of samadhi is about the subtle world. For example, we have pancha mahabhutas, we also have pancha tanmatras. Tanmatras are subtle features of each element. To quote few, shabda or the sound is tanmatra of akasha, and the rasa, the taste, is tanmatra of water. The color is tanmatra of the fire, and the touch or the sense is tanmatra of vayu, that is air, and shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, and gandha. These are 5 tanmatras. So when samadhi happens on these subtle elements, and which are beyond perception, beyond tangible universe, all is the second stage of samadhi. And when it goes even deeper than not even tangible or untangible universe, that is a deeper level of samadhi. So samadhi is the levels of samadhis are based on the nature of the object that you are doing samadhi with. Okay, stages of samadhi is based on the nature of object, whether it is gross or the subtle, or even subtler and subtlest. So when you start turning all the energy that you have to which are external in nature towards internal, the stage of samadhi also increases, and it is of the superior quality of samadhi. And then what happens when you progress in different stages of samadhi? It says shruta anumana prajnabhyam anya vishaya vishesharthatvat. This knowledge which you get out of different stages of samadhi is capable of going beyond pratyaksha and anumana. Pratyaksha is sensory perception, anumana is the inference. All our communication interaction with this universe is only happening with these two tools, that is perception and inference, majority. So I accept what I see. What I see, I believe it. This is it. And science has come to that stage. Unless it is deducted to only perception, it is no more a science. Right? Is there any doubt about it? I call any stream of knowledge as a science which is deductive in nature. If not, it has to be tangible to our senses. Otherwise, because it is not measurable, because it cannot be repeated, because it is not available to the instruments, I reject it to be science. Okay? And I recently came to know why the post master's degree programs are called PhD, philosophy, doctor of philosophy. Why this term has been coined? Because the questions which are not being able to answer by the science, philosophy can answer. The purpose answers everything. the questions which are not answered by the science with your tangible senses can also be answered by the philosophy. That is why the PhD is beyond the masters. By masters, you know how intelligently a stream has been applied, and you also know how to apply it in the chosen field. But with the PhD, you are going to answer a specific line with confirmation, finding out its basic root thought. At the base, what is the cause? Then that is why it is called the Doctor of Philosophy. Even there are different, DLT is available and DSc is available, but PhD, doctorate, Doctor of Philosophy is superior than any of the degrees available in any stream. Even if you study science, it will end up in doctor. Why? Because this is the reason. Hence, it goes beyond your tangible measurements and repeatability. So, Shruta and Anumanabhyam Anya Vishaya, the objects that you deal, the subjects that you deal with, beyond this gross and subtle objects for your samadhi will be generally beyond perception and the inference. This is what finally we have to look for yoga to gain with. Yeah, and uh, this is what this is what actual influence. You go beyond. So when you stand above, you can look down and you can see properly. Um, how many of you are from Maharashtra? I'm just curious. From this audience, there's no one. Oh, there is no candidate in this attending from Maharashtra or origin from Maharashtra. Why I am asking about Maharashtra? We had a great king, Shivaji. You know how Shivaji used to win the battles? Always he will choose a strategic place on top of the hill, and he can see from which direction the enemy is coming from, and he can directly attack on them. And this is very common experience when you stand above, when you stand at the higher altitude, you can see through all the things around. In Bangalore, there is a utility building. Okay, utility building is the highest. Okay, it was the toppest earlier. Now I don't know. Government did not allow to build beyond that certain height. So if you stand above, you can see all the things. So when you go beyond Pratyaksha and Anumana, you can see through anything. That is the beauty. That is the power that you gain out of different stages of samadhi. This is what we have to claim. We should not, though you are all the practitioners, doctors, you are medical, practitioners, but still we should not confine yoga therapy just to only pratyaksha, some variables, some BMI changes, and breathing techniques, whatever you claim. It should be little going beyond, so that you can see what is happening right now today. There are no therapists, yoga therapists. Why? If this did not work, and why it did not work, and you tend to give another technique to challenge a specific disease, rather going in depth of why this technique did not work. But when you go beyond, you can see through that problem. This is the challenge for all the alternative therapies today in our country. You know, Ayurveda is the greatest science, it is the greatest medicine. But even today, there are not very strong research activities going on, and nobody can claim so authentically that this works. If it works, if it does not work, why it is not working? Generally what happens, people go to Ayurveda physician, and they give big list of some powders, some tonic, and some paste, and it be in between the food you eat, and for only few selected people it works, but for others they never go to the doctor to say why it did not work. But this is not the case with allopathy. If there is an injection, it goes and targets directly, and you come up with confirmed, assured result. Today, why not? All the alternative therapies are not offering, because this is the major reason. If an asana does not work for a specific disease or an ailment, we don't know why it does not work, because we are stuck up with that alone. We did not step back and watching it why it did not work. But when you go further, these stages, different stages of samadhi, you will be capable of analyzing them, standing beyond perception and the inference as well. Sometimes inference does not work, even your estimation does not work. So in those cases, only this higher altitude standing and pointing out this is the reason why it is not working. That is why you should, all of you have to work, uh, committed, not being serious. Okay, there is nothing to be serious about this, but yoga needs much more commitment with all these techniques. And moving on to the next point of the first chapter, that is samskaras. It says uh, there are different samskaras that we have been piling up from either this birth or from previous birth, and all of them have a certain situations needed to express themselves. For example, in order to know the true nature of a person, give him or her the position and the wealth, you can understand the true nature. Similarly, what is going in anybody's brain, it needs some external situation, and those samskaras are influencing even now. Now you have only two ways of looking at any situation, whether it helps or it does not help, whether listening to someone is going to help, if it does not. These are the two choices. So leave off that. In some other, most of our cases, whether it is giving pleasure or pain. So this is what our samskara. We are driven by pain and pleasure principle. This is what even Sigmund Freud claimed. It is pleasure principle. The human beings or any life form you consider, we are all driven by the pleasures, and we step back, or we get off from that which gives the pain. So pain and pleasures are the screwdrivers of our entire life. I will do this because it gives me the pleasure. I will not do this because it gives me the pain. So these are the samskaras at one specific level, and we will discuss in detail in the next chapter. Okay. So all those old samskaras will be eradicated, and they get distracted when there are new samskaras developed from chitta parikarma. When you start developing friendship and it has become habit in your day-to-day life, and you see the result, you can observe yourself the change in attitude, and all those you used to get jealousy by looking at someone who is happy will be eradicated. Maybe at some point of time completely you can observe yourself how you have changed. So samskaras, old samskaras will be removed and new samskaras originated from different levels of samadhis will come to surface and they destruct the earlier one. So with this I am completing the first chapter. Since we don't have much time to get into the specifics of what we have discussed, all those earlier sessions we had, uh, 4 sessions till now, all of them have covered the points that are listed above. Now we are moving into the second chapter, which is called sadhana pada. So sadhana pada is named because it has the tools how to do sadhana. Sadhana is a tool or the instrument or the methodology that you apply, that is called sadhana. In order to dig the floor, you need a sharp instrument. In order to read, you need the instruments like eyes and the light. Everything becomes the instrument and tool. Hence, after setting the goal that we have to achieve samadhi, yoga samadhi, how to apply? Even while writing your research article, the beginning, though it gives background, but aim and objectives. Aim and objectives will be in the beginning. And then methodology. In methodology, you have inclusion, exclusion criteria, what is your intervention, and what are data collection, all you do. And then data analysis. And then you have a conclusion. Similarly, in fact, you can claim the flow of thought of Patanjali is perfectly fit into a research thesis. He sets the goal in the beginning saying, this is what we have to achieve, samadhi. Then he comes as sadhana pada, that is means of how to achieve that step by step. And in the beginning, he says there is something called Kriya Yoga. This Kriya Yoga is different from one school of yoga. You might have heard Yogada Satsanga, Paramahamsa Yogananda. So he also named his school of yoga as Kriya Yoga. And in the beginning of second chapter, he says that Kriya Yoga is like a quick fix for all type of the NCDs. NCDs are very long and chronic problems that we have. So quick fix for chronic problems is tapaswadhyaya and Ishvara pranidhana. So tapaswadhyaya and Ishvara pranidhana are Kriya Yoga. So Kriya is again, if you have studied Hatha Yoga Pradipika, there are 6 Kriyas, Shat Karma. And what do? They remove the kapha prakriti. You also should know when to apply these kriyas. Vamanadhauti or Dandadhauti or Jalaneti, Sutraneti or Basti, okay, Nauli, Trataka, all these are only addressing the kapha prakriti. Please be sure while you practice. Everybody need not practice kriyas. It is not necessary. Even without kriyas, you can do many other things. Kriya is only applied if a person is predominant with kapha prakriti. So invariably, you have to take the consent of either Ayurvedic doctor to know nature of the patient, or you learn how to measure what kind of patient is approaching you. So please note this: kriyas have to be given only for those who have kapha prakriti, deha prakriti. There are two types of prakritis. One is deha prakriti, the other one is manasika prakriti. Okay, deha prakriti is kapha, vata, and pitta, and manasika prakriti is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And Ayurveda works on both the things. What is missing in other alternative therapies is, though they have some kind of application to offer as either yoga therapy or naturopathy, or there are much correlation between hatha yoga and naturopathy. We have water therapy, we have mud therapy, we have different therapies in alternative therapies, and naturopathy has much of it, and we should know which one to apply for which kind of prakriti one is coming with. So at least with this hatha yoga pradipika, do not prescribe any of those kriyas if the person is pitta prakriti and vata prakriti. Only those who are predominant with kapha prakriti you should apply. And here we have kriya yoga, that is a kind of quick fix to prepare yourself to the next level of actual healing methodology. So these are kriya yoga. So kriya yoga are actually tapas, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana. So doing tapasya and swadhyaya and ishvara pranidhana, surrendering to the greater existence which is long lasting than me, that is ishvara pranidhana. Or to think, let me offer all the actions and along with the results to some higher higher being. Or in your case, let me not own my all therapeutical benefits only to me. I am just a kind of the medium. Recently I met a world renowned psychologist. His name is Manohar Shindeji. He lives in the USA, and in one of our conversations, he said all the psychologists and psychotherapists will become successful when they start disowning their therapy, not because the consequences are not as much they have anticipated, but everything is happening because I have just become myself as a counselor or a therapist, a medium to flow some energy through me and to cure someone. Okay, it needs a matured level of understanding. What we claim, actually, this is also the very much practice in the society. If there are successful doctors, they start owning the results. Okay, oh, this is because of me. But when you bring in this very small aspect, whatever I have done, some intelligence which has created this universe is flowing through me, and I am being successful in dealing with the patients. This very small attitude can change completely. I assure you, I will write it and give that it is going to change your success rate in your practice. Done with an attitude of me being a medium for therapies. All the patients you can cure. Okay, you can deal with its successful rate of cure if you have done this. Then next comes the point about what is the result of Kriya Yoga. Samadhi Bhavanarthaha Klesha Tanu Karanarthascha. He says Kriya Yoga has to be practiced to reduce the kleshas and samadhi bhavanam. If one is intending to get into the stage of samadhi and to reduce the influences of kleshas, I have to practice Kriya Yoga. And what are the 5 kleshas? Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha, Abhiniveshaha, Pancha kleshaha. Let me type it here. If someone is noting it down, there are 2 results or outcome of practicing Kriya Yoga. One is Samadhi, the other one is Klesha Tanu Karanam. Achievement of Samadhi and reducing the intensity of Kleshas. So, Kleshas are Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha and Abhinivesha. These are 5 kleshas. These 5 kleshas have been influencing us in every step of our life. So basically, avidya is bedrock for the rest of kleshas. Asmita, Raga, Dvesha and Abhinivesha are the different levels of avidya itself. Avidya expresses itself into 4 more. So all put together, there are 5 kleshas. So what is avidya? Avidya is an impression or the wrong knowledge that you have. For example, considering your friend as foe or somebody who is very cunning nature, but you thought that fellow is very good friend of mine, or thinking good as bad and bad as good, something which is opposite of it, whenever you perceive, it is all part of avidya only. Avidya is wrong understanding, incorrect perception, okay, and delusion, not delusion actually, but wrong knowledge about something. Opposite knowledge is avidya. And asmita is the sense of me, which is not me. I have the body. So if you consider your body as you yourself, there is nothing beyond you, body, then it is called asmita. Asmi, this is me. Sense of identity is asmita. And raga. So raga is always, I try to give very common experiences. For the first time, okay, let me ask you, how many of you like gulab jamun? One has raised 2. Okay. How many of you? Okay, 4. However, with this pandemic situation, I cannot distribute gulab jamun with any one of you. I actually have demonstrated in the class with all the students of mine. I shared gulab jamun with all of them just to have fun. So if you like gulab jamun, even as a common experience, if on one side the class is going on, and on the other side gulab jamun is kept, where are we driven? Towards gulab jamun. Hell with this class. Okay, it doesn't matter. So I am showing an inclination or longing for something which gives me the pleasure. That is called raga. And raga has a specific tendency behind it. Sukha anushayi raga. The longing for an object after you receive a pleasurable experience from that source. So this longing for that situation or the object is called raga. And dvesha is, do you want to prick your hand with the pin? How many of you want? I just asked how many of you like gulab jamun. Now I am asking, who wants to prick one's hand with the pin? Raise your hands. No, no. So only one says no. So rest of you like. So so what is that? Why I don't want to prick myself? Because it gives me the pain. Simple reason. Why I don't want to talk to a fellow? Array, I don't want that situation. Okay, it's boring. Why do you attend such classes? Okay, it gives me the pleasure. Why don't you want to attend such some classes? I'm not getting pleasure behind attending any session. So our entire life is driven only with these two triggers, that I don't like. I like to do because it gives me a pleasurable experience. I don't do this because it is a painful experience. So this is raga and dvesha. And in fact, these are the two switches. Our life is between these two. I like, I don't like. I will do based on likes. I will not do based on dislikes. And that is how the deep are these two. And this is what we also have said in the beginning as samskaras. We behave and we jump on those things which are very much desirable to us. I like this. Then you want it once again. And you don't want. So that is raga and dvesha. Next, abhinivesha. Abhinivesha is very common in all the life forms throughout the universe. Abhinivesha is longing for live forever in this earth or in any world that one is living. Desire for living forever is abhinivesha. Who wants to die? No hand should raise. Nobody wants to die. Still, we find so many suicides because they are fed up. Okay? They are unable to bear the pain with. So there are suicides. There are people who are also, there is another category who also enjoy their suffering. Those are called I forgot the English term. Sorry, I will remember. So abhinivesha is to live forever. The desire to live forever. It exists even in a small ant, even with the mosquitoes, okay, even with insects, even with bacteria, right? The dosa or idli that you make, those are not for you. They want to multiply themselves, but you are eating all of them. So this is very inherent, deep tendency in all the life forms, that They want to live forever. They want to exist forever. This is what we call as abhinivesha. And avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, panchaklesha. All these 5 kleshas can be reduced with the practice of Kriya Yoga. So, Kriya Yoga is basically to deal with all these kleshas. And I have one doubt, sir. It is said that, okay, we have to stop the session. It is said that one should have no desire to. No, it is a wrong understanding. Having no desire is facilitating you to get into samadhi state easily. Okay, that eases you to get into samadhi, but it is not a necessary condition for you to attain samadhi. When attaining samadhi itself is a desire, yes, you also have to have a desire to achieve a samadhi. Otherwise, why would you do that? So, desire of attaining samadhi is termed differently. That is mumukshu. Mumuksha is to transcend desires. That is also a desire. I want to transcend all the desires. That is samadhi. So, desire is not bad thing. Everyone will have and should have at least desire to live, and you have it already. So when attending samadhi itself is a desire, how it can be desireless? No, samadhi has to be with desire. Okay, hope you get my point. Sorry if I was nothing wrong in that question. Is it necessary to be desireless to attain samadhi? No. Only people who have no desire will achieve samadhi? No, that is also not wrong. Or is samadhi a desireless condition? Yes, at the higher level, at the superior stage, not at the beginning. So I have said there are different stages of samadhi. Okay? All those initial stages of samadhi will have desires. It is not desireless condition. But when we talked about abhyasa and vairagya in the beginning, that is not beyond desires. Having mastery over desires is vairagya. But one of the techniques that we discussed earlier point as to quieten the mind, to think about minds which did not have desires, like Ramana Maharshi, I gave an example. So these are all different topics we are discussing. So having desires is not a problem, but to get entangled with the same desire again with raga, because once you have a kind of pleasure with one type of experience, you want to get it once again. You ate for the first time gulab jamun, you liked it, but it doesn't stop over there. You want that gulab jamun once again. Okay, so these are some entanglement within the desireful stages of the experiences. Okay, yeah. So the rest of points of this chapter and the next chapter we will discuss in the next session. So anyone has any other question to ask? You may unmute yourself and ask, or you can just give a chat message. Okay, so it seems we don't have any question.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
sir, for another wonderful session today.
Uh,
Thank you everyone for joining. We will continue our series of session on a next Thursday and next Saturday.
yes. Okay, thank you. Shubharatri. Good night.